Peoples, what is going on? I am Finesse, and we are here in the Finesse Garage today because we are going to start putting the Chief back together. But before we get into that, there's a few things I want to let you guys know. So I was doing some cleanup here in the garage, and I noticed that I had this heel shifter here. Now, this heel shifter is for the 116 engine. I mistakenly bought it because I thought it was for a Pursuit that was going to be for someone else, but it is for the 116 engine. So if anybody out there has a 116 engine and you would like a heel shifter, just comment down here in the comments below. You're going to have to be a subscriber though in order to get this. So as long as you're a subscriber, you say down there in the comments that you want the heel shifter, and then I will send it to you. First come, first serve. All right. Next up, I have this here, which is the Rider's Journal. So Indian Motorcycle is going to be sending out a I guess magazine of sorts, and as you see up here, it's number 1. So this is the first issue. It has lots of information about people that build Indian motorcycles, like custom builds, restorations. I mean, there's all sorts of things in here. There's information about some of the 24 models. I mean, it's just a really cool little something to have in your man cave, woman cave. And as you can see right here, it also has some Litas information in there. So if you're part of the Litas, you can see some of their rides. This one here was a ride they did in France. So interesting stuff, really interesting stuff. So you should have this in the mail by now. I'm sure you've already seen it. If not, I want to say this is part of the elite status. One of the perks for the elite status is that you're going to get this pamphlet. I want to say it's quarterly. This says summer of 2024. I could be wrong on that, but it appears like it's going to be something that's going to be quarterly. So interesting. All right, so before we get started, we're just going to look at some of the things that I have here on the table, or some of the things that needed to be replaced. We got a new rear axle. We got the rear brake disc. We got the left side lever, left side turn signal, and then we've also got brake pads. Now, the one thing that I am missing is the brake caliper. That's still on order. We're waiting for that to arrive. We got miscellaneous screws and things, studs, and that's for the turn signal. And then here we have the suspension. So just to kind of show you what came off of the Chief. So you can see this one is a bit crooked. So, you know, obviously you can't keep that on the bike. All right, so there are also going to be some other things that you're going to need. I got some thread lockers just in case, but if you look on these bolts that come from Indian Motorcycle, they already have the red thread locker on it. So, but you know, like I said, just in case. I'll also have some brake fluid because when we replace that caliper, we're going to have to recharge the fluid in the brake system. But the caliper's not here, so we're not going to be using that today. And then here we've got some high temp bearing grease, wheel bearing grease from Fram. So that's going to go onto the axle rod when we install that. So without further ado, let's get rolling. All right, so the first thing we are going to do is remove the rear axle. And to do that, you're going to loosen the axle up on the left side of the bike. On the right side of the bike, there is a nut, but it's held in place with a retainer. And because of that retainer, you can't get any tools around that nut. But you wouldn't want to anyways, because it's designed to just come out on one side. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm loosening this up, and then I'm kind of adjusting the jack to take some of the tension off of that axle. Once you get it loose enough, then that bolt and retainer will come off. After that, you can just slide the rear axle out. All right, now that we have the rear axle out, I'm gonna get the wheel. I'm gonna remove this spacer that's in there. And then we're gonna put the wheel down. I'm gonna grab some tools. And once we get that, we're gonna remove the 6 bolts that are holding the brake rotor onto the wheel. Now the bolts that are holding this rotor onto the wheel are not overly tight. They're torqued to spec. So you just get a ratchet and you can get those off. All right, so once we got the rotor off, I'm just showing you guys here, or at least I'm trying to show you guys here what the damage looked like. But I'll give you guys here a closer look at it. So that inside piece, the interior piece, is kind of disfigured where it's offset, kind of leaning inward or outward, whichever way you're looking at it. But either way, we grab the new rotor and put that in place. And then after that, I'm going to grab the bolts and I'm just going to put those in there in the rotor. We're just going to get them hand tight for now. All right, so at this point, I'm figuring out that I do not have the torque specs for this brake rotor. So right now I'm dialing up Savannah Motorsports to see if they can get me the torque specs for this rotor.
One for sales.
All right, now that I have that information, I'm putting that into the torque wrench. I recently picked up a digital torque wrench, which if you don't have one, I highly suggest you get one. These things just make it so much easier. But at any rate, we're going to get these all tightened down and torqued down. All right, after that, we're going to grab our axle rod. We're going to put some grease on there. Now, you don't want to, overdo the grease on this axle rod. You're going to want to get enough to where you can get an even coat across the entire rod. Now, I'm showing you guys just a little dab that I took, but I did put more than that on the rod. But as you can see, it's not like completely covered. All right. So once you get all that stuff prepped and ready, you're going to want to take the bracket for the brake caliper, get that in place along with the wheel speed sensor. You want to get all those in place because once you get it in position, then you're not going to be able to slide any additional pieces in there, just because of the clearance with the rotor and the frame. All right. Now, once you have all of that aligned, you're going to want to make sure that you have your retaining brackets both on both sides. Your retaining brackets along with the nut there on the right side and get all that pushed through. And once you get it to the other side, because of the belt, you're going to want to put a little cross tension on there. And by cross tension, I mean leaning your left foot on the front of the tire to push it back. And then that way you can get that rod all the way through. All right, once you get it through, you're going to tighten that down to spec. All right, once you're done with that, we're going to start working on the suspension. So you might have to do a little bit of adjusting with the suspension as far as, you know, the jack. So that's what I'm doing right here, just to get it matched up. And then on your suspension, if it's the stock suspension anyways, you're going to see that it has a label on it that goes facing the interior of the vehicle. So we're just going to get that on enough to where we can hand tighten the nuts on the top and the bottom of the suspension. Then after that, we're going to grab our torque wrench and get everything torqued down to spec. And just like that, we are done with the rear end of the bike, at least for now. All right, right here, I am getting all the parts ready for this turn signal on the nacelle here. It's pretty simple. It's just 2 pieces with a bolt. But first, you're going to want to fish this wire through the hole. It has a odd shape to it, but the plug on the end of that wire will fit through there. You just kind of have to spin it around a little bit, and then it goes right through, no problem. Once you get everything mounted and connected up, then you're going to take your socket wrench and get everything tight. And since I had it out, I also checked the other side just to make sure that it was good to go as well. All right, now that we've done that, we can get this mounted up on the forks. Here I'm just sliding the wires through the hole there. And at this point, I'm realizing that these back plates for the nacelle are going to have to be removed in order to get this in the proper position. So it's real simple. There's only one screw on the back side that's holding it in, so I loosened that up. Not all the way, because they didn't need to come all the way out. I just needed to get a little bit of space. Now that I've got my space, these 2 rubber grommets at the top of the nacelle go in first, and then you got to get the housing in over the top of the back of the housing. All right, takes a little working, but basically I just kind of pushed in the back side of the housing while I placed the front side of the housing over the top of it. And then after that, you're just going to tighten up those screws that we loosened up earlier. And then that nacelle housing is good to go. All right, so we're going to grab the windscreen for a reference so that I can get these mounts in there. And it turns out that these were incorrectly put in, which I'm going to find out here in a few. But that's because when I took this apart initially, it was probably about a week and a half ago. So I forgot the orientation in which they come in. But basically, those 2 that are on the left are for the top. And the one that I have here on the right without the rubber grommet on it is for the bottom. So without the rubber grommet should be on the bottom. With the rubber grommet should be on the top. All right, now that we got all that sorted with the rubber grommets on the top and the non-rubber grommets on the bottom, we're going to start working on this headlight. And here I'm just pushing the wires through for the turn signals and the headlight, which I should have connected these up before I put them through the headlight, but For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But either way, I got it done. All right, now that I've got everything connected, we're gonna get these mounts, get the headlight mounted to the frame. And there's 2 hex bolts here. Real simple, grab the ratchet, get those tightened up. Then after that, we are gonna grab the headlight, get the headlight plugged in. And there's no confusion with these wires because they only go one way, all right? So you don't have to worry about figuring out which wire goes where. With this headlight though, you're gonna wanna make sure that seal is properly placed so that you got no leaking. And then here at the bottom, there is a retaining screw. Pull that out, and then that way I can get this retaining ring onto the headlight. Now at the bottom of the headlight, there is an indentation, so you don't have to worry about the orientation or trying to find or line up the screw hole with the screw. And you just grab an Allen key and tighten that up. So then after that, we're going to grab the windshield, and these windshields are quick release. However, you can make them non-quick release or less quick release, if you will, because they have set screws that go in there. And when the owner dropped the bike off, it had the set screws in it. So we're going to put the set screws back. All right, so that is going to do it for today. We made some good progress on the Chief. There are a few things that I need to do, which is to replace the brake caliper. We're still waiting on that to come in. I have the brake pads here already, in addition to the brake fluid. And I also have to replace the clutch lever. And once we get that in, I'll get everything done and bleed the brakes and get everything set. And we'll get this bike back on the road. So just to take a look at some of the components that we replaced. This right here is the old axle. It is bent. If you're looking at it here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's slightly bent up on this side from this point up. All right, so we definitely had to replace that. This here is the brake caliper. It is warped pretty good, and so we absolutely had to replace that. And since this was warped, I did not want to put the same bolts that came off of this back on there, so we got new bolts for that as well. And these are the old bolts. And of course, this here is the old suspension that is shaped like a banana right now. So you know that had to go. But all in all, the repairs were pretty simple. There was no modifications, or I didn't have to do anything crazy because we're using all Indian Motorcycle parts. And this was my first time kind of doing a repair. It was fun. I had a great time. I think all in all, it was about an hour or so from getting everything off the bike and then on the bike. So with that, once we get everything repaired, we are going to be taking the bike to Indian Motorcycle to have them inspect the bike and see how these repairs have gone. Now, like I said, I've checked the tech specs. I've checked everything as far as the installation goes with this bike, and I followed all of those instructions. So the bike should look as good as it did when it left the factory floor. And once I get it up to the dealership, I'll have one of the mechanics look at it and then have him tell us if he found anything or if everything is good to go. All right. So again, if you want a heel shifter for a 116, I have that heel shifter. You just have to be a subscriber. You just have to comment down below that you want it, and I will get it to you. It's going to be first come, first serve. So if you see this video and you comment down below that you want it, you got it. As long as you're the first person, all right? And just like that, we are going to end this video. So you know how I do it. Ride every day. And most importantly, make sure you're enjoying it. Peace.